Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Wolves. Today on the show, the Timberwolves held on to beat the Pacers on Sunday, but Anthony Edwards left with a hamstring injury in the first quarter. Talk about how the Wolves managed his absence on offense, and is there any chance he plays tonight against Denver? We'll break it all down next.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Beecken. I'm the host of Locked On Wolves. Today's episode is brought to us by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Happy Monday, everybody. It's a victory Monday after a Timberwolves win. I don't want to call it a big Timberwolves win. It was a very short-handed Pacers team. It was an ugly win. They held on to win by just 4, and Anthony Edwards left with an injury just 5 minutes into the game. But it was an important win. It was exactly the type of win that the Wolves haven't gotten a lot of over the last 2 seasons, really. And you look back on it and you say, okay, you got to win the ugly ones. The Wolves don't often win the ugly ones. Both teams were obviously shorthanded. The Pacers were on a back-to-back. The Wolves on the front end of a back-to-back. It was just kind of like, it felt like one of those like mid-February wars of attrition that is already happening, and we're not even to November yet. So it was kind of ugly in that regard. But it was there were a lot of things about the game that were fun. Still a lot of fun Julius Randle moments, some fun Jaylen Clark moments. We'll talk about all that today. We'll start with Ant here in a minute, and then we'll talk about how the Wolves survived without him, and we'll ultimately do some studs and duds. Wolves play Denver tonight. I won't do a whole lot of a preview for that, but we'll touch on it toward the end of the show. So a lot to get to today. Big thank you off the top for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every day. Of course, you can listen anywhere. You can also watch on YouTube. You can also download the Locked On Sports Minnesota app on Roku and Amazon Fire TV and watch there as well. All right. So Anthony Edwards, we'll start there. Setting the stage for the game, the Pacers are shorthanded. Benedict Mathurin got hurt. We obviously know Tyrese Halliburton. Like, this is a shorthanded Pacers team that came to Minneapolis, playing on the second night of a back-to-back. And Obi Toppin got hurt during the game and didn't come back. But yet 5 minutes into this thing for Minnesota, Anthony Edwards leaves after a seemingly innocuous play in transition. He complained about a foul and everything, like, or not a foul that was not called. He had a really good opening. I said 5 minutes, so actually 3 minutes. He had a really good opening stint. He somehow squeezed the trigger 5 times in 3 minutes, got off 3 3-pointers in 3 minutes, had that transition play, and the Wolves are up 8 when the Pacers called timeout. And then coming back from the timeout, Anthony Edwards isn't on the court. He's not on the bench. Bones Highland is in the game. It kind of took a minute, I think, for everybody to realize, like, wait a minute, Ant's not out there. And then there wasn't really an update until it was like the end of the quarter almost, when the Timberwolves said he was out for the rest of the game with hamstring tightness. Apparently it's something he's been dealing with a little bit. There were some reporters that said they saw him kind of grabbing at his hamstring. I think John Krasinski reported he was grabbing at it in LA in the game against the Lakers on Friday. So we don't know. Chris Finch didn't have an update after the game, but a couple things on this. One, first of all, you don't play around with hamstrings with soft tissue problems like that, right? Because an actual hamstring pull sometimes can take weeks and weeks to overcome. And obviously a severe pull it could be a tear, which is even longer. And well, it's, very rarely like season ending. It's something that if you don't take care of, it can either linger and or turn into you're out for 4 to 6 weeks because it's a really bad hamstring pull. And we've seen Wolves players have that. I think McLaughlin had a bad one a couple of years ago. It could be a problem that really lingers. Plus, they ruled him out immediately. It wasn't like he's questionable to return with hamstring tightness, which is usually what we get from Ant, is like, hey, he might come back or whatever, and we don't expect him to, and then he does. So given that it's Anthony Edwards and given that he typically does bounce back quickly, I think it was either Julius Randle or Reid had a comment after the game about, I bet he'll play tomorrow. I think it was Randle that said it. I'd be really surprised. As of this recording, the Timberwolves have not issued their injury report for Monday against the Nuggets. I'd be very surprised if he played on Monday night with a hamstring issue. I mean, that's the sort of thing that, like I said, you don't mess with that, because it could very easily, if it's just tightness right now and it's something that's just nagging at him and bugging him, give him 3 days. They haven't had consecutive off days. You're not going to play him. I know he only played 3 minutes, but I think it'd be kind of silly to put him out there for a back-to-back. They next play Wednesday against the Lakers. And look, if you're really worried about him, about it, you sit him for both games because then they get consecutive off days Thursday and Friday, and he plays at Charlotte on Saturday, and he would end up getting essentially a full week of rest then minus the 3 minutes he played. But you'd be getting 5 days from the injury or from the whatever the re-injury, whatever on Sunday, almost 6 days before they would play Charlotte Saturday evening. So I'd be very surprised if he played against Denver, and as disappointed as that is, and as tough as that's going to be on a back-to-back to take on the Denver Nuggets without Karl Anthony Towns. Oh my goodness. Without Anthony Edwards. I think it's the right move very clearly. And obviously they lost the Lakers with Ant on Friday. Play the Lakers on Wednesday without Ant is obviously going to be a challenge as well. And on the Denver front, I mean, Denver hasn't played since Saturday, so they'll be, and they didn't open until Thursday. So they'll only played 2 games so far, and they'll have the rest advantage anyway against Minnesota, coming off a big win over Phoenix on Saturday. So I don't know. I'd be very surprised if Ant plays tonight. But without Anthony Edwards, the Timberwolves still had a game to win, and they did. And they were down 2 at halftime. They had a really big third quarter that kind of propelled them. And the key to all of this was Julius Randle. I think we got to start there. And I know I have on the graphic, if you're watching on YouTube, I've got, well, actually, we can start with Rudy and Clark. I'll go in the order of the graphic that I made. I should probably do that. But Randle was the key to the offense. I thought overall for the game, and this started in those first 3 minutes when Ant was even on the floor, the tone was set really by Rudy Gobert and then eventually by Jaylen Clark as far as a perimeter defender, and overall kind of hustle guy that Jaylen Clark is. But Rudy Gobert early in the game on the glass was awesome. He had 4 total for the game, 14 points and 18 rebounds. He had probably 4 or 5 rebounds, period, between the offensive and defensive sides of the floor in the first 5 minutes of the game. Like, he was all over the place on the glass. The Pacers, again, shorthanded, a smaller team anyway. Obviously, this is a team that doesn't have Miles Turner anymore. They're starting Jay Huff, who's more of a stretch big at the 5, and he doesn't actually play that much. And then Obi Toppin goes out too. So there just wasn't a whole lot of size there for the Pacers. And at the same time, like, the Pacers actually did win overall the numbers on the glass and actually did have 16 offensive rebounds. But Rudy was the reason it wasn't much worse. I mean, Rudy Gobert was very active early in the game. I thought he was pretty active offensively too. He got to the line 7 times. He only made 2 free throws, but still 14 points on 7 field goals is a pretty good efficiency overall for anybody. It's not like stellar for Gobert, but 18 rebounds for Rudy, 4 of them on the offensive glass, 14 on the defensive glass, a couple of blocks in this game. And I thought the tone that he set on the glass early, combined with Jaylen Clark and the way he played defensively on the perimeter, it was essential in this game. And with no Anthony Edwards too. So the Wolves are automatically then down another perimeter defender. Like, it's Dante DiVincenzo, it's Jaylen Clark, and it's Mike Conley guarding the point of attack. And TJ Shannon ended up only playing 10 minutes. We'll talk more about that, but he was actually last on the team in minutes played if you take out Ant. And that's because Jaylen Clark was so good on the perimeter that they needed him out there to guard the point of attack. And between Clark and Rudy, that's how the tone was set defensively for Minnesota. And there were bad moments. And we'll talk about like some of the things that need to be cleaned up. And a lot of it is on the defensive end of the floor, even though it's not like the offense was world beaters in this game. The shooting wasn't great for the perimeter. Talk about that too. But this was important for Clark and Gobert to show up and show out on the defensive end of the floor against a team that wants to play fast and is well coached and plays hard. And, if Jaylen Clark doesn't play the way he does, if Rudy doesn't play the way he does, I don't think this is a win for Minnesota. I mean, ultimately, it was still just a 4-point win. But I think this could have turned out much worse for the Timberwolves. I want to talk about Julius Randle. Actually spent quite a bit of time talking about what he did in this game. We'll talk about some of the other stuff. The biggest issues, because we can't pretend like it's all, sunshine and roses after beating a severely shorthanded team by 4. Yes, ugly wins are important, but why was it ugly? We'll talk about all that here next. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our friends at Monarch. Let's be honest. Most of us can't even name all of our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, and investments, it is easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. And that's why you can start using Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. It'll help you organize your accounts. You can track your spending. You can get a better handle overall on your investments across the board without ever having to touch a dreaded spreadsheet. You can review anything and everything with your partner, perhaps. If you want to look at it together, you can see your shared goals and help make better financial decisions together. Monarch's visual dashboards and smart tools make it so much easier to understand where your money's going and how to make it work harder for you. Don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKDOWNNBA at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com, code LOCKDOWNNBA for half off your first year. Today's episode is also brought to us by our title sponsors at Game Time. Basketball season is well underway now. We're more than a week into the NBA season, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But let's be real. Getting tickets can be a total headache between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout. It is easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your favorite team, and that is where Game Time comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NBA tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. The new lighting at Target Center is awesome. Feels like you're watching a game at MSG or crypto.com or whatever Staples is now. It's that theater lighting, right? And the throwback court last night was legit. It was a sellout. You can still get tickets to tonight's game against the Nuggets over at Game Time. That's the best place to get your tickets to be part of that home action in Minnesota. And the best part is the zone deals. They're a big game changer. You can pick your section. Game Time will pick your seats, and you will save big. You can find NBA tickets for under $25. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. All right. We got to talk Julius Randle. Minnesota they scored 114 points. They only had one guy score more than 17. They only had three guys score more than 15. Julius Randle was essential in this game. He had 31 points on 18 shots. The Pacers tried to guard him after Ant was ruled out for the game. They tried to guard him pretty much straight up with Pascal Siakam, and Siakam's a great defender. Great's maybe a little strong. He's a very, very good defender. And Randle didn't have any problems with that. And then when the Pacers started to send help and kind of feign doubles and just give a little bit more support in the second half, Randle was they ran their offense through Randle. Like, he effectively was, oftentimes when he brings the ball up the floor, he's that point forward, but they were throwing the ball to him everywhere on the floor, kind of in the high post as well, the mid post, where Randle likes to get the ball, likes to turn his back to the basket, back guys down. And if he's guarded by a small, which is when the Pacers would bring a double, or even if he was guarded one-on-one by Siakam, he can get to his spot. And this is what we saw early in the game, like first, second quarter. Didn't matter who was on him, but if he had somebody on him one-on-one, he'd back them down to 10, 12 feet, turn around, and knock down the shot more often than not. In the second half, he became a little bit more of a facilitator, and he really did take what the defense gave him. It was actually like quintessential Julius Randle, exactly what Chris Finch envisioned when he presumably signed off when the team brought Julius Randle in a little over a year ago. This is the point forward. We can run our offense through you, and you're not going to try and do too much. But if they're going to guard you one-on-one, you're going to play bully ball. It was that version of Julius Randle. 31 points at 18 shots is outstanding efficiency for Julius. He only knocked down 1 3, and I think it was his first attempt of the game, very early in the first quarter. He was 8 of 10 at the free throw line. And I'll see if I can pull up quick, but I can't remember the last time Julius Randle shot 8 free throws in a game. I know that it's something that, or I should say 10 free throws in a game. He made 8 free throws. But that's something that, like, is a huge, if Julius Randle's getting to the line that often, that's a really, really important and solid Julius Randle performance. He did it. I stand surprised. He did it in the playoffs once against the Warriors and once against the Lakers. In the regular season last season, he shot 10 or more free throws. However, only 4 times last season of the regular season. So a couple things. One, it shows how good he was playing in the playoffs, that he did it I remember how good he played overall against the Lakers and Warriors. He did it 5 times in the regular season last year, twice in the playoffs, and now already he did it in the first and hopefully one of very few antless games for Minnesota. Able to get to the line 10 times and still shoot 11 of 18 from the field. To get the efficiency of 31 points on 18 shots while only making 1 3-pointer is super important. He also led the team with 6 assists in this game. He did have 3 turnovers, but given everything, given how much offense was running through Julius, a 6-3 assist to turnover is totally fine. He had just 4 boards, but that doesn't bother me as much because he was doing so much offensively, and obviously that contributes to the Wolves actually losing the glass battle and giving up 16 offensive rebounds to the Pacers. You could point at Julius for some of that, but again, he was being asked to do much more than he typically does offensively. But I thought he was really good overall. And without Julius Randle being your second star and being able to run offense through him, Timberwolves don't win this game. And we'll talk about DiVincenzo was good. Nas had a really good second half. I thought when Ant went out, I was like, all right, we're gonna need some Julius, we're gonna need some Jaden McDaniels, we're gonna need some TJ Shannon. And either one of those guys played particularly well, or in Shannon's case, played very much at all in this game. And instead it was Julius that truly was able to step up and take the reins and had the offense flow through him, which was a really, really, like, again, it checked all the boxes for all the best case scenarios that Chris Finch sees when he has Julius Randle, to use him as that what's the word I'm looking for? Like, if he's hub, he's basically the hub of the offense, right? He's distributing to everybody around him. He's also the guy that can, if you're not going to bring a double, he's going to bully ball you and score, or get to the free throw line, or both. And he was very, very good in this game. Other notables here. We talked about the tone that Clark and Gobert set. We should talk about Dante. Dante was really good, 17 points on 13 shots. And after struggling in that starting role, really over the first 2 games, for the most part, struggling, for him to play as well as he did, I thought was super important. I mean, 17 points on 13 shots isn't like ultra efficient. He was only 2 of 5 on 2-point attempts in this game. I think he smoked a couple layups that he probably should have made. But he got to the line 5 times, which is a good number for him as well. Minnesota overall, I should say, actually, this is something I wanted to get to anyway, so now's as good a time as any. Minnesota attempted 37 free throws in this game. There were too many whistles straight up, and we've seen that in basically every Wolves game so far. And when I talk about the issues the Wolves have had, we're going to talk about defending without fouling for sure. But on the plus side, Minnesota clearly realized a couple things. One, we need to get to the line. We don't have Anthony Edwards. We don't have it getting to the line because that's such a big part of Edwards' game. But we also need to generate some offense. We need to get to the line. And the way they're officiating this game, they're calling everything. We need to take advantage of that, be aggressive in getting downhill, getting into the paint, getting to the rim, getting into the bonus, and ultimately getting to the free throw line. And that's what the Wolves did in this game, to the tune of 37 free throws, which is a really, really big thing when your star player leaves 3 minutes into the game. Which actually, let's talk about the issues. I think that's I mean, they're 2-1, but a disappointing loss to the Lakers on Friday and a barely win in this one. So let's talk about what went wrong in this game. And I think number one, you have to look at is defending without fouling. And I know they were a +10 in attempted free throws and a +8 in made free throws. And so that's great. And, it helps the Pacers were 67%, missed 1 out of every 3 free throws they took in this game. But Minnesota committed 24 personal fouls, and the Pacers got 27 free throw attempts. And Minnesota was in the penalty, I think, pretty early in both quarters of the second. And, well, at least in the fourth quarter they were. And that's what allowed the Pacers to hang around and score 33 points in the fourth quarter in this game, was Minnesota just could not help themselves with defending without fouling. And Jaylen, again, was a culprit. He had 4. Mike Conley was a bit grabby, and we're seeing a bit more of that with as his foot speed and his agility slows down. And then Jaylen Clark is just aggressive, and there were a couple silly ones early that he picked up. There were, like, right when he checked in the game for the first time in the first quarter, I think it was on an inbounds play. He tried to be aggressive as he does, and he got into the body, and there were a couple ticky-tack ones, yes. But defending without fouling has been something Minnesota's really struggled with so far through 3 games. And it's probably been the biggest issue, honestly. And it's what's kind of putting a cap on their defense to this point. Is they're defending to a point really well. Like, they held the Pacers to under 43% shooting, 30 35% from three, which you can live with that, certainly. But the free throws, the 27 free throws are what allowed Indiana to easily score 100 plus points. And you could point to that in both the Lakers game and the Portland game last Wednesday. Minnesota's got to clean that up. They've just got to be better at defending without fouling. And it's a problem that dates back to last year. But that to me is the biggest issue right now for Minnesota. And then I would also say in general, defending, if your name's not Jaylen Clark on the perimeter, like we've seen TJ Shannon struggle a little bit at the point of attack when he's been out there. We've seen Mike Conley, as I just mentioned, struggle a little bit. Dante DiVincenzo has been a little bit hit and miss. Jaden's been fine, but we know he can be better. Point of attack defense, they need to take that cue from Jaylen Clark. And he's kind of trying to assume that mantle of bench point of attack defender like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, where he's absolutely one of the best in the league at it. But it's got to be contagious. Other guys have to come along to the party and defend better, especially on the perimeter. And then the last thing would be the transition offense for Minnesota. I think there's more upside there. In this game, Minnesota had just 7 fast break points. The Pacers had 23, and I know that that's not the Wolves game. But the crazy thing is, like, Anthony Edwards a lot of times is the reason the Wolves slow things down. He likes to slow down and survey the court. He likes to let guys catch up and then himself shoot a pull-up three or whatever once he's got offensive rebounders down the court. He likes to slow the pace down. So with no Ant, I know the Wolves wanted to be careful about playing at a Pacers speed, but like there were moments they could have hit the gas and they didn't. And that contributes to a less efficient offense. And ultimately, Minnesota shot 46% from the field. They got to the line 37 times. Like the offense was okay in this game. The 13 offensive rebounds, the second chance points certainly helped, especially early in this game. And then they didn't shoot the ball well from three. So, I mean, like if they shoot 37% from three instead of 30%, if they make 14 threes instead of 10 threes, like this looks a little different. But I think it's something to keep an eye on. Chris Finch wants to play faster, and the Wolves have not done that to this point. And there's, I think this was a game in which there were some moments that could have taken advantage and played a little faster, and they did not. All right, I want to hit studs and duds here to close the show, and then we'll close by briefly touching on Wolves Nuggets tonight. We'll do all that here next. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our friends at FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there is no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of any given game or you just want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. You can live bet any of these games. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when the team is making a late push. Live betting in the Timberwolves game is a ton of fun. Tonight's NFL game, Commanders at Chiefs. Chiefs are favored by 11.5 points. That feels like a really big number. I know Jaden Daniels is out, but it's still a big number for a Chiefs team that, yes, is playing better, but how dominant are they really? Looking at the Wolves game tonight is a bit more of a question mark because we don't know the status of Anthony Edwards. But I think right now, FanDuel's assuming he's not playing. Right now, the Nuggets are favored by 5.5 on the road in Minnesota, a back-to-back for the Timberwolves, although both games are at home. I don't know. I don't hate Wolves plus 5.5, even if Ant doesn't play. I feel like this is still probably a close game. But still, divisional game, Denver is going to come out ready to play. David Adelman wants to win his first game as head coach in Minnesota, where he was an assistant as dad coach. So it'll be interesting. But Minnesota is 5.5 point underdogs at home tonight. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right. Let's close with studs and duds quickly here, and then we'll touch on Wolves Nuggets tonight. Obviously, Julius Randle was awesome. 31 points on 18 shots. Got to the line 10 times, as we talked about, 8 of 10 there. 6 assists, 4 boards, and a steal, 3 turnovers for Julius. But as we talked about already, the offense ran through Julius Randle. He was basically the reason the Timberwolves won this game. If you had to name a player of the game, it's Julius Randle. Rudy Gobert, the tone that he set was super important in this game. He is also a stud. 14 points, 18 boards. The 14 points coming on 7 shots and a couple of blocks, 1 assist, and just 1 turnover for Rudy Gobert. This was a solid Gobert game for sure. The third stud, I'm going to go Dante DiVincenzo. I just thought he played a more complete game than Naz in this one. 17 points on 13 shots, 3 of 8 outside the arc, 3 assists, a couple of rebounds, just 1 turnover for Dante. Obviously he's this quote unquote starting point guard. Conley ended up playing 25 minutes. Bones Highland played 19 minutes. I guess we should talk about that a little bit. So it's DiVincenzo still playing off the ball a lot, but for him to only have one turnover is nice after, what did he have? 6 on opening night against the Blazers. So a good performance from Dante. We should talk about Naz Reid. Naz had a rough start to this one too. He had a really bad first 2 games, rough early stages of this game. And once Ant went out, it was like, all right, we need some Naz contributions if the Wolves are going to win this thing. He ends up, you look up, he's got 16 and 10. He had 4 offensive boards. He only knocked down 1 3, but getting active on the offensive glass and the glass period is a good way to get yourself jump started, get yourself back into stuff. He still had 3 turnovers to only 2 assists. He did have a couple of steals, but this was hopefully that a strong second half from Naz Reid can kind of propel him to play better. It feels like maybe the Denver matchup. I mean, he always seems to play well against the Nuggets, and it feels like, keep that momentum going the very next night. I kind of have a feeling Naz could have a really good game here on Monday night. Real quickly on the rotation, I touched on TJ Shannon early on, him only playing 10 minutes. Chris Finch acknowledged after the game, look, I mean, Jaylen Clark was playing well. Dante was playing well. Like, it was hard to find him more minutes. I bet on the second night of a back-to-back, fresher legs, I would say younger. He's not actually that young, but in theory, a younger guy, at least in terms of being a second-year guy. I bet he plays a lot more tonight. And also, Minnesota just wanted more guys to that could run offense. And Bones Highland was a bit up and down, as Bones Highland is. Hit a crazy 3 toward the end of the shot clock that they needed, like early in the game. Finished with 3 turnovers to just 2 assists. Ended up playing 19 minutes. I'm not going to overreact yet to Bones Highland going from being out of the rotation to playing 19 minutes because obviously Ant got hurt. Things are a little bit wonky early in the season. I mean, Joe Ingles was in the rotation at this time last year. So, like, I'm not going to overreact to it yet. He's played okay, though. I don't think it's tenable for him to be like a 20-minute a game guy moving forward, and I don't think he will be. But he's played well. So credit where credit's due there. And I don't have a problem with how the rotation has looked to this point, given everything that's going on. And obviously the Ant injury now throwing a wrench into stuff. So overall, good rotation choices. We talked about Jaylen Clark. We talked about Conley was fine, played a little bit, some elevated minutes in this game. So I think we see more TJ Shannon tonight. I think Naz Reid will have a big night. In terms of the Denver matchup, Denver's only played twice so far this season. It's obviously been, it's an exceedingly tough matchup because of Nikola Jokic, and Denver had a great offseason, has a really good roster, better roster than they did a year ago. And of course, David Adelman, former Timberwolves assistant and son of former Timberwolves head coach Rick Adelman, is the new head coach for Denver. The Nuggets lost at the Warriors for their opening game by 6, and then they beat the Suns by 22 on Saturday. So they'll have the rest advantage. Traveling in from Denver, presumably on Sunday, and getting to spend the night in the Twin Cities. The Timberwolves on a back-to-back. At least they're at home and they're not traveling. As I mentioned earlier, the FanDuel line has Minnesota underdogs by 5.5 points. We don't know if Ant's going to play. Before the injury, I believe the line was Wolves by, I think it was by 1.5. So, like, the assumption is he's not playing, and the line moved, what is that, 7 points, which is crazy, but makes sense. The Nuggets are healthy. Like, expect Nikola Jokic to play and play well. So this could be a tough game for the Timberwolves, but it's obviously a matchup they've done well in, going back to the even the regular season of the year in which they beat the Nuggets in 7 games, and then last year in the regular season too went very good for Minnesota. Interested to see how they handle Nikola Jokic. There's not a whole lot of frontline depth for the Timberwolves. I don't think they're going to throw, like, this isn't a matchup. We saw it in preseason, right? Joan Berenger did not hold up well against Jokic and Valanciunas in the post. This isn't a matchup where you're going to be like, all right, let's go, play more bigs and keep them front. Like, they're not going to do that with Berenger in this matchup. So I'm curious to see how that all shakes out. Obviously, Rudy's got to play well. He's got to play like he did Monday. Tough on a back-to-back, but that's going to be what's needed if the Wolves are going to beat Denver here tonight. All right. That's all I got. Of course, the live postcast, if you've missed it, Jack and Luke are doing their thing after every game, so they'll be live again tonight. And new this year, the live postcasts are on the Locked On Wolves YouTube channel. So if you're watching this on YouTube, the last video before this one would have been the live postcast with Luke and Jack following Sunday night's win. So they'll do that again tonight. Every night, 15 to 20 minutes, quick hitters after the game. And then you'll get the postgame pod from me following after that, probably late tonight, very early tomorrow morning, more of a quick reaction than we had over the weekend to the game. So you have the postgame pod from Wolves Nuggets up on this feed as well from yours truly. And we'll get you through the week here as the Wolves look ahead to the Lakers on Wednesday. We'll cover the Ant injury and what happens there as we start to get a little bit more data, and we'll start to look at lineups and stuff like that as well. So That's what's upcoming this week. A big thank you for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every single day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. You can watch on YouTube. You can watch on the Locked On Sports Minnesota app on both Roku and Amazon Fire TV. And a reminder for your second listen, check out the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Show. Josh Lloyd hosts the #1 fantasy basketball podcast out there, giving you daily tips and helping you win your league, all while making you a smarter NBA fan. Find Locked On Fantasy Basketball on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And of course, this show is part of that very same network, your local experts on all the biggest stories. Once again, I'm Ben Beecken. This is the Locked On Wolves podcast, and we'll catch you next time.